Nos contacts sont réguliers. Nos équipes travaillent ensemble. Vous l'aurez constaté, nous avons émis un certain nombre de communiqués communs, conjoints. Et sur le terrain également, nos représentants se concertent et travaillent ensemble. Je crois que cet élan est à encourager et ceci va nous permettre certainement d'anticiper sur certaines situations. Donc la prévention est importante, notamment en matière de paix et de sécurité, sur les questions de médiation, sur les questions de règlement de conflits. Et nous venons de nous adresser tous deux au Conseil paix et sécurité de l'Union africaine, qui aura d'ailleurs une réunion de concertation dans les jours à venir à New York avec le Conseil de sécurité des Nations Unies. Donc, une fois de plus, Monsieur le Secrétaire général, merci d'avoir fait le déplacement. Je peux vous assurer que nous avons eu des résultats très concrets et que ce partenariat est absolument bénéfique. Merci.
Ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you very much for your presence. As I just said to the Peace and Security Council, if the UN fails in Africa, the UN fails. And on the other hand, African leadership is essential to solve African problems. So if two things are true, the only way for the UN to deliver is in a very solid and close partnership with the African Union. And I'm extremely grateful to Chairperson Faki for the excellent development that our relations have had in the recent past. We are totally aligned in the implementation of our economic agendas, 2063, the African Union Agenda, 2030, the UN Agenda for Development, that are now the same agenda. And I strongly appeal for the international community to make sure that these agendas are fully financed. And also, I strongly congratulate the African Union for its very important initiative on corruption. And I appeal to the international community to do everything in order to make sure that illegal financial flows, money laundering, and tax evasion do not allow $50 billion to leave the African continent every year. This is a responsibility for the international community to support Africa, to make sure that African resources remain in Africa to support African development. At the same time, we work very closely in peace and security. And I would like to say that we feel a wind blowing in the direction of peace. The visit of the President of Ethiopia to Eritrea and its amazing success, the recent IGAD decisions on South Sudan and the summit in Khartoum, some decisions of heads of state in different countries that were in crisis, paving the way for future political solutions. All this gives us hope that the African continent will be moving more and more in the right direction in peace and security. But of course, we have very dramatic crisis situation too. And we have 4 peacekeeping operations in Mali, in the DRC, in South Sudan, in Central African Republic, where we no longer have traditional peacekeeping, where you have all kinds of armed groups, terrorist operators, we have peacekeepers being killed. And so we are now committed to a deep reform of our peacekeeping operations in close coordination with the African Union. But also we recognize that peacekeeping is not enough, that we need peace enforcing and counterterrorism, and that the African Union and its organizations, regional organizations, is particularly suited for those operations. But as it was the case in AMISOM, as it is the case now in G5 Sahel, the way these operations have been conducted in the past did not have enough support from the international community. We need peace enforcing in Africa, counterterrorism in Africa, with African forces, but with clear mandates from the Security Council, in my opinion, ideally in the Chapter 7, and with predictable funding, namely the funding that comes from assessed contributions. We need to understand that when African troops are fighting terrorists in the Sahel, they are not only protecting the citizens of Sahel, they are protecting the whole world. And the world must be in solidarity with Africa as African forces are protecting us all. And we will be side by side with the African Union to make sure that peace and security in Africa remains a priority for the whole of the international community.
A very big thanks to the two principals. We'll now take questions. Very glad if you could state your name, the organization that you work for, before you state your question, please. Thank you.
Can I go ahead?
Please, do go ahead.
My name is Samuel Getachew. I'm from The Reporter. My question is to the Secretary General. The representative of UNAIDS in Ethiopia is facing serious allegations, including non-payments of houses she's rented. People rented houses to her because of her connection to the UN. We've been trying to get answers from the UN for a long, long time. There are questions going around. Can you update us on the investigation that's being done? Because there are people that haven't been paid, and it's not just one or two people. There are so many people. And even the government of Ethiopia, Foreign Affairs, has waged a complaint to Geneva, and your side haven't even commented. And my question to Mr. Faki is, there are serious allegations made in terms of the young women that work within the AU. There are petitions that they've signed saying they're facing discrimination, including being forced to get sexual favors for promotion and to get employment within the AU. What are you doing to make sure that no woman will be discriminated because of her background? Thank you.
We'll take two more questions before the principals answer, please. AFP.
Hi, I'm Chris Stein from AFP. This is a question both for the African Union Chairperson and the Secretary General. Ethiopia and Eritrea have agreed to normalize relations. Does the UN or the African Union intend to play a role in facilitating that process, particularly with implementing the boundary demarcation agreement reached in, or boundary demarcation decision reached in 2002? Thank you.
One last question, and I'd very much appreciate it if it came from a local press house.
Actually, I'm not from a local press. My name is Elias. I'm from the Associated Press, AP. My question is for Chairperson Moussa Faki. Recently, the human rights body of the African Union has expressed concerns against Algeria for the expulsion of migrants, sub-Saharan migrants, out of the country, or the inhuman treatment of these migrants inside the country. Are there any upcoming measures that are going to be taken against Algeria for these alleged human rights violations? Thank you.
And then maybe one last question on that end, please.
Yesterday, Ethiopia and Eritrea resumed their...
Excuse me, could you state your name and the organization?
My name is Addis Getachew, Anadolu News Agency. Yesterday, Ethiopia and Eritrea resumed relations with really a fanfare. But there seemed to be, Secretary General, there seems to be these undercurrents that may come in the way of the two countries sustaining this good feeling and this cooperation in the long run. What do you think the two countries should do to sustain their cooperation? And are we going to see a lifting of sanction against Eritrea? Thank you.
Merci. Je commencerai par la question sur la pétition des femmes. En réalité, c'était un document écrit mais non signé, des signatures sans nom. En fait, c'est un document anonyme qui parlait, donc qui a soulevé un certain nombre d'allégations, de traitements. Ils ont même traité d'apartheid, le traitement des femmes au sein de l'Union africaine. Nous avons pris au sérieux ces documents, quoiqu'il n'ait pas été signé en bonne et due forme. Une équipe a été mise en place, comprenant un représentant de la Cour africaine des droits de l'homme, une de la Commission des droits de l'homme et la représentante spéciale du président de la Commission en charge des questions des femmes dans les zones de conflit. Le travail a commencé En principe, ça doit se faire en 3 semaines. L'équipe elle-même a demandé un temps supplémentaire pour faire ces investigations. Et donc, c'est sur la base de ces investigations que des mesures concrètes seront prises. De toutes les façons, sachez que tout comportement sexiste est absolument inacceptable à la Commission de l'Union africaine. Et il y a tolérance zéro. Il va faire en sorte que des mécanismes, on prendra des mesures supplémentaires pour permettre à ce que des abus de quelque nature ne puissent advenir au sein de l'Union africaine. Pour ce qui concerne l'Algérie, nous avons suivi également par la voie de la presse des allégations sur le mauvais traitement contre les migrants. Pour nous, à l'Union africaine, au moment où nous condamnons le traitement des migrants africains par les pays étrangers, a fortiori, on ne peut pas accepter que des États africains traitent mal tout Africain, même s'il est illégalement rentré dans le territoire. Au moment où nous lançons le protocole sur la libre circulation des personnes dans le continent africain, au moment où nous lançons la zone de libre-échange continental dans le continent, au moment où nous lançons le marché unique de transport aérien en Afrique, il serait paradoxal qu'en ce moment-là, on puisse accepter que des États africains traitent de façon anormale les citoyens africains. Nous avons des mécanismes, nous avons des instruments, ils vont faire l'évaluation de la situation et si jamais cela est avéré, les mesures qui sont prévues dans nos instruments seront appliquées à tout État qui enfreindrait aux règles. Maintenant, sur la question de l'Éthiopie et de l'Érythrée. D'abord, nous nous sommes félicités au niveau de l'Union africaine. Vous avez sorti un communiqué. Aujourd'hui, dans nos entretiens avec les Nations Unies, nous nous sommes félicités de cette lueur. Nous apprécions particulièrement le courage politique du Premier ministre d'Éthiopie, qui a pris cette initiative, qui s'est engagé à respecter ce qui a été décidé il y a une vingtaine d'années, et s'est rendu depuis hier à Asmara. On a vu l'accueil chaleureux qui lui a été l'allégresse. C'est dire que les peuples africains veulent de la paix et de la stabilité dans leur continent. Naturellement, et les Nations Unies et l'Union africaine qui étaient impliquées déjà dans la délimitation des frontières et qui ont fait la médiation, nous sommes prêts, et nous nous sommes concertés, nous l'avons dit, nous sommes prêts à accompagner la normalisation des relations entre les deux pays. Merci.
In relation to the first question, I have to say it's the first time I hear about it. The Secretary General doesn't control the different autonomous organizations that exist in the United Nations universe, but I will look into it as soon as I arrive and use my good offices in order to make sure that the organization that you mentioned is able to solve the problem. I would like to say that I believe that the recent evolution in relation to between Eritrea and Ethiopia is a very important signal of hope, not only for the two countries, not only for Africa, but for the whole world. When we see so many conflicts, and when we look at so many years in which these two countries have not been able to come together, it's really very good news that these political will of the two countries to solve their problems is now evident. The UN is ready to do whatever the two parties will ask us to do. It is obvious that it's now for the two parties to decide how they want to conduct the solution of their problems, but the UN will be entirely at their disposal to do whatever is necessary to facilitate the success of what needs to be done, and namely in relation to questions related to the borders. There are always undercurrents in relation to peace anywhere in the world. But there are also positive currents. I think the positive currents now are much stronger than the undercurrents. And if one looks at the map, what the peoples of Eritrea and Ethiopia have to gain from the point of view of the development of the two countries by the establishment of friendship between them, of economic cooperation, is, I think, such a remarkable positive contribution to the two countries that I believe that this will help facilitate any hiccups that might always occur, and that indeed that obvious benefit that both Ethiopia and Eritrea will take out of the solution of their problems will overcome any difficulty. It is my hope, and it is also my sincere wish. Sorry? But, I mean, sanctions are, of course, a Security Council decision. I cannot take decisions on that. Sanctions were motivated by a number of events that took place. It is my belief that if those events will no longer exist, if the reasons that led to the sanctions will no longer exist, but that of course depends on the specific nature of those sanctions, they will naturally become obsolete. But at the present moment, what I think is important is that the two countries come together, and that of course will pave the way for the solution of many other problems.
One last question on this end.
Thank you. My name is Coletta Anjohi. I'm from Feature Story News Agency. My question is on South Sudan. The Kampala, I would call it the Kampala Agreement between President Salva Kiir and which gives the opposition leader now a chance to be a vice president if approved. Do you think it's a quick fix solution? Because if you look at the details, it adds more ministers, more members of parliament. It looks like a similar one that was made previously and it backfired. Do you have faith in the Kampala Agreement? Please, for both of you, please.
J'ai cru comprendre, c'est pour le Soudan du Sud. Effectivement, d'abord nous saluons l'action des Ligades. Déjà, le sommet du 21 juin ici a été une étape importante. La veille du sommet, donc le 20 juin, le Premier ministre d'Éthiopie a réuni le président Salva Kiir et le docteur Machar. Il a été convenu au cours du sommet que les discussions vont continuer à Khartoum, ensuite à Nairobi. Les protagonistes se sont rendus à Khartoum. Après des négociations, il a été sorti l'accord dit la déclaration de Khartoum. Déjà sur la cessation des hostilités. Ensuite a été organisée à Kampala il y a quelques jours une rencontre. Celle de Khartoum, il y avait également le président Museveni qui a assisté. Cette fois-ci, le président Béchir s'est rendu également à Kampala et les pourparlers ont avancé. C'est vrai, l'IGAD a promis un schéma dans lequel, c'est vrai, pendant la phase transitoire, il fallait augmenter le nombre de membres du gouvernement, augmenter le nombre de membres du Parlement. Si cela peut permettre, en 18 mois, de passer une transition qui puisse permettre la tenue des élections, je crois que le jeu en vaudrait la chandelle. Même si, rationnellement, augmenter le nombre de gens pendant une période extrêmement difficile, mais c'est peut-être le prix à payer. L'essentiel pour nous est que cette fois-ci, les protagonistes au Soudan du Sud respectent leurs engagements. Ils nous ont habitués à signer des accords et à les violer immédiatement. Je crois qu'aujourd'hui, et l'IGAD, et l'Union africaine, et les Nations unies, tout le monde est unanime sur la nécessité de respecter et de faire respecter les décisions. La situation humanitaire dans ces pays dépasse les limites de raisonnable et il faut absolument que cette fois-ci, sanctions si nécessaire à l'appui, il faut que la situation au Soudan du Sud soit résolue.
I fully agree. I've lived as High Commissioner for Refugees the drama of the South Sudanese people. I remember when the peace agreement was signed, we are now 18 years or 19 years after that. No, 13 years after that. 13 years after that. I was starting my functions as High Commissioner for Refugees. And 3 days after beginning, I was in northern Uganda in a South Sudanese refugee camp. And you can't imagine the joy of the people with the peace agreement. Then I myself accompanied refugees that went back to South Sudan when South Sudan became independent. Now, can you imagine what it is that after a few years, 500,000 people went back home and more than 1 million had to leave, millions displaced inside the country, and the number of people killed, the number of children killed, the number of people victims of malnutrition, it is really horrific. This conflict is an horrific conflict. This conflict needs to stop. And so, I must tell you, when I saw that there was a chance of peace, I immediately believed that all of us need to do everything possible to make that chance become a reality. Now, the details of the transition agreement might not be perfect. I think that is totally secondary if peace is indeed achieved. Now, if peace fails, then I believe, and I fully agree with the Chairperson Faki, it is impossible to make those that are responsible for peace not to be possible to become accountable vis-à-vis the international community. But now the objective must be to make peace prevail, and that is much more important than the details of any specific power-sharing arrangement.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending this press conference. On your way out, there will be the joint communique from the AU-UN Second Annual Conference. Thank you very much.